Hello, everyone. I'm Karen MacNeil, author of the Wine Bible and editor of the digital newsletter WineSpeed. And this is winespeed.com's People to Know, insider interviews with the most fascinating and important people in the wine business. And today we're talking to Alessia Antinori. Alessia is the youngest daughter of Piero Antinori and the vice president of Marchesi Antinori, one of Italy's oldest and most prestigious wine companies. Growing up, Alessia helped with harvests on the family's Tignanello estate in Chianti, Classico, and Guado al Tasso in Bolgheri. She earned a degree from the University of Milan in Viticulture and Enology and was a winemaker for the family's sparkling wine brand, Montanisa in Franciacorta. In the mid-2000s, Alessia spent time in India and Asia as the Antinori Family Ambassador. She moved to New York in 2009 to work with the Antinori sales team. Along with her role as vice president, Alessia represents Antinori on the board of Premium Famiglia Vini, supervises the Antinori Art Project, sits on the board of the National Italian Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome, the American Academy in Rome, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Other than that, she's not busy at all. Welcome, Alessia. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. It's great to be with you today.
Excellent. You know, I'm wondering if you remember your first encounter with wine, if you remember the first glass of wine you ever had.
Absolutely. I was quite young, but it was Christmas with all the family. And we had, obviously, also, they had, my parents especially, a good glass of wine. And so my father, I remember very well that he asked me if I wanted to have a little sip of wine. But the sip of wine was basically putting my little finger in the glass and trying the smell and obviously a little bit of the taste of the wine. So that was my first experience. And I have to say that with my kids, I did the same thing after many years, obviously. And so when I was, and I went with my oldest kid, which is now, he turned just 11. I went with him in Champagne, and he really liked, with the Premium Famiglia Vini in Paul Roger, and to visit, and he totally loved Champagne and the sparkling wine. So that was his first experience too.
Well, I can see that the family lineage in the wine industry is going to be carried on. That's really clear. You know, speaking of your father, Alessia, I've known your father for, I don't know, 30 years or so. And I'm wondering what it's like working with him.
I have to say that it has been and it is an amazing experience because you learn so much every day from him. He never stops teaching in a way. It's for him, working is not working really. It's his life. He loves what he does. He's totally passionate. So he transmits us the same values to us, three daughters, but also, we try to transmit those values to our kids. And that I think is the most challenging part, but it has to be spontaneous and natural. And in that way, you really are, you fall in love with what you do. And in our, wine world, and especially in our family experience, this is what really gives us the challenge also to continue and to transmit these values also to the next future generations.
Yeah, I can quite imagine that. Was there a particular lesson that he taught you that you always remember?
I think that the most important lesson, which wasn't directly a lesson really, was, to be, in a way, to be humble, to appreciate what we inherited also and what we had, because it's not obvious. And sometimes when you live in places like where we lived, in Florence, in Tuscany, in the countryside, surrounded by art, in the city center of Florence, you are also a little bit spoiled. And so he always taught us that, we were very lucky. And I think this is probably the most important aspect that he taught us, and also to always manage and appreciate to stay with every kind of person close to you, because you can always really learn something from everybody. So I think this is an aspect of his character that distinguishes also our family and our style.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. You know, you formally studied winemaking at the University of Milan and actually worked as a winemaker for a bit of time. What prompted you to decide to go into the sales part of the business?
So first of all, when I go back a few years, because when I was 18, obviously I had the passion in wine, and I always followed harvest. Also, when I was younger, 16, 17, even years old. But I had also a little doubt, because I had two passions. One was art and history of art, and the other one was obviously wine and winemaking. Then I really followed my real passion, which was winemaking. And so I went to Milan, and I went to University of Milan to follow that aspect. But in a company like ours, that is a family company, I think it's fundamental, it's very, very important to know all the aspects of the company. So obviously the winemaking is what I specialized in, but I really wanted also to have an experience in marketing and communication and sales. And for that reason, I went to live in Asia, and I looked after, as a brand ambassador, all that part of the world, which nowadays is maybe more obvious. But when I went there, which was more than 15 years, 20 years ago, it was certainly a true experience. And it was challenging. Also at the time, the Italian wines in Asia weren't as known as the French wines. And certainly, it was really a beginning of that period. And so for me, it was one of the most incredible and interesting experiences of my life.
Ah, I can imagine. You know, speaking of art, is wine art for you?
Absolutely, yes. Wine is art because there's all the aspect of their, we call it artigianalità, which is the artisanal part of the wine and how you make it, the philosophy, the approach, the territory, the history, the culture. All these are all aspects that make a wine a really special product, and it's made by human beings. So for that reason, it's artisanal. And obviously, if you're talking about human beings and also, history with it, that makes it really, really special. And also because we are family owned. So it's a company that is a wine family that produces a wine. So this makes it really unique.
Mm. You know, I'm always startled as a writer. Whenever I've written about Antinori, I look this up on the site every single time, and I think they can't possibly have begun in 1385. I mean, 1385, my goodness, you're the 26th generation. And I can imagine that, you can't be the 26th generation who decides to, I don't know, go off and become a surfer, right? There must be some pressure to carry on that line. I'm wondering if there was ever a time that you said, well, maybe my sisters are going into the business, but I'm not. I'm going to do something different.
No, I never had that. First of all, we were never obliged to work in the family business. This helped probably because as you can imagine, if you're obliged, it's never easy to take the decision. But instead, we were never obliged. We were really passionate in different aspects of the company. The three of us, three sisters. So we very spontaneously we worked in the company. So for us, that was very, I would say, normal in our lives. But said this, I think that for the future generations, so the 27th, which is on board now, because between my nieces and nephews, there are three of them that are on board. And so this can be challenging because we are in total between nieces and my father has 6 grandchildren. So we'll see if all of them will be, I will want and will be able and capable to work in the family company. So that would be the real challenge, not our generation, but the 27th.
Yeah, well, how lucky for them, right? So I wanted to ask you, as I was preparing for this interview, I was remembering the first time I was in Tuscany quite a long time ago, but there is something special there that a writer probably should be able to describe. Still not so easy. I'm wondering what, for someone who grew up in Tuscany as you did, what is it about that place that makes it so special?
I think first of all, when you live in one place, as I was mentioning before, you never realize the real beauty of what surrounds you. But said that, since I've traveled a lot abroad, when you go back, you really appreciate it. And I think it's a mix of many aspects. The territory, the land of the Chianti Classico, which is the land that surrounds, it's close to Florence, where we come from. And the climatic conditions, which are unbelievable in certain, especially in certain months of the year. The history, the culture in general. Florence is the birth of Renaissance. So that culture really, you can feel it in the city of Florence and also in the Florentine people. And I think all this mixed together gives the result is in a place which is unique in the world. And in a unique place like that, I think that especially with the land and the soil of the territory of the Chianti Classico, with the Sangiovese, which is the indigenous grape variety of the Chianti Classico, gives the best results and unique results in the world. And it's a combination of facts, and it's always that and makes something different. I think it's not only one aspect, but many together.
Yeah, the fact that the Renaissance was born there is, in and of itself, just such a I feel as though art is palpable around you in every small aspect, in the way that the hills roll against each other. Just so beautiful.
Yes, and so it has been the birth of culture, because it was the arts, the architecture, the engineering. So they were really, really great artists, but in many cultures, not only the art in general.
Yeah. Alessia, who influenced you in your life outside of your family? Who was the biggest influence on you?
I had a mentor, which unfortunately is not here anymore with us, which is a woman in the Primum Famiglia Vini. And her name is the Baroness Filipina Rothschild. And she has been, when I was very young, and we traveled a lot together, in the Primum Famiglia Vini, in our trips that we had together. And she really taught me many things on how, on how the elegant approach of French wine is really important. And I think this for me, for myself, for my family was very inspirational.
Philippine de Rothschild as your mentor. Oh my goodness.
She was a great person, tough character, very huge personality. But with me, we got along very well, I have to say. And probably because, also because we saw each other not every day. But I really I had a great relation with her. And also in the wine world, there weren't many women, especially many years ago, and so was inspiring too, for many aspects.
Absolutely. And lastly, I want to ask you, Alessia, what character trait do you possess that you believe has has helped you be successful? What character trait?
I'm very curious, and I think curiosity is extremely important in many businesses, but also in the wine business. And in fact, Florentines, apart the great Renaissance period, have always not been, I would say, extremely curious. They never went outside their land, their territories. And instead, in my family, especially my father, I would say, but not only my father, also my grandfather, they were very curious. They went abroad a lot. They came to the United States, for example, many years before many other producers. And they were curious because they wanted to see what was happening outside their own land. And I think this in our business is really, really important. And also because it's always an exchange of experiences of what we can bring, but also of where we can learn too. And we have learned a lot with our experiences abroad, in our partnerships, and with our curiosity. I think in my family, especially my father's, has been really, this aspect has been fundamental. And also for myself, I've been always very curious. And this is an aspect that is really extremely important, in my opinion.
Wonderful answer. Yes. Well, Alessia, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Italy. I would toast you, but it's morning here in the Napa Valley, so I have only a cup of tea. But thank you so much for joining us. And for our viewers, everyone who is watching, our complete interview with Alessia Antinori is on the winespeed.com People to Know page. I know you'll enjoy it. Please check it out. I'm Karen MacNeil.
Thank you, Karen. Goodbye.